All right, let's just jump right into it. We're going to be talking about one of the most famous rules in all of human history, the Sixth Commandment. Now, on the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? But what we're about to unpack is how its real meaning is so much deeper and honestly a lot more challenging than you might think.
And there it is. Just do not kill. It's a law that everybody, everywhere kind of gets. Don't take another person's life. Simple. It's the bedrock of our legal systems, our moral codes. But what if that's just scratching the surface? What if that's only the tip of the iceberg?
And yeah, that's really the big question we're tackling today. Is this command just about the physical act of murder, or is it asking for something way, way more from us? So let's really get into it.
Okay, so before we can appreciate just how radical the deeper meaning is, we've got to understand the traditional view, the simple, straightforward way this law was understood for centuries.
For the religious experts back in the day, the scribes and the Pharisees, this was basically it, the whole deal. As long as you didn't physically, end someone's life, you were good to go. You had followed the command. It was a very clear, very legal line in the sand. But then, everything changes. Jesus comes along and just completely shatters that simple, clean interpretation. He yanks the commandment out of the courtroom and places it right in the middle of the human heart.
And this is where the bar gets raised, like way higher. Jesus basically says that if you want to be truly righteous, you have to go way beyond what the religious leaders were teaching. They were focused on the outside, the physical act, but he took it inside, to the heart, saying that even being angry with someone or insulting them, well, that puts you on dangerous ground.
He even uses this specific Aramaic word, raka. Now, this wasn't like calling someone a silly name. This was a brutal insult. It meant empty head, worthless person. It was designed to completely strip someone of their value. And that's the point, isn't it? Murder doesn't just start with a knife or a gun. It starts with a thought, a word, that says you are worthless. It starts with dehumanization.
So this is where it starts to feel a little uncomfortable, right? Because if murder now includes holding someone in contempt, calling them a fool, or just letting anger simmer in your heart, who here can honestly say they're innocent? All of a sudden, this standard feels just impossibly high. Okay, so if the standard is that high, what are we supposed to do? Is it hopeless? Well, according to the source material, there's a key that unlocks this whole thing. And it's another super famous principle, the golden rule. And check out the last part of that verse. For this sums up the law and the prophets. That's huge. This isn't just one more rule on the pile. It's being presented as the main idea, the lens you're supposed to look through to understand every other command, especially do not kill. And this little rule just flips the whole thing on its head. See, do not kill on its own is a negative command. It's about what you shouldn't do. But the golden rule makes it an active, positive command. Suddenly, it's not enough to just not harm people. Now you have to actively work for their good. You have to treat them with the same dignity and respect you want for yourself.
So what happens when we take that active principle and apply it to our world right now? Well, the definition of killing just explodes. It forces us to look at all the ways we might be taking part in what the source calls invisible murders.
Just think about it for a second. If the command is to actively do good for others, then just ignoring the vulnerable, the poor, the orphan, the widow, that's a violation. Exploiting someone with a crazy loan, abusing your power, what's called gap till in Korea, or even making money from something like real estate speculation that causes other people to lose their homes. All of these now look like ways of breaking the command.
And look, this is not just some abstract idea. The source points to a heartbreaking, real-world tragedy in Gwacheon, Korea. A father completely ruined and driven to despair by a housing market that pushed his family out onto the street ended up taking his own life and his family's. This is the real, fatal cost of these so-called invisible actions.
This is what the source defines as social murder. It's when our actions, or the systems we all participate in, threaten a person's very survival, their dignity, their ability to live. It's a kind of killing that's just as deadly, even without a weapon.
Now we get to what the source argues is the most dangerous level of this whole thing. What happens when religion itself is used to say these harmful systems are okay?
That's a pretty chilling thought, isn't it? The idea that Scripture could be twisted to bless greed, to say that exploiting people is just business as usual. When that happens, that teaching becomes a type of incitement to social murder. It gives people a holy permission slip for actions that destroy lives. And that, the source argues, is the deepest, darkest corruption of all.
So, here we are, left with this impossibly high standard that judges our thoughts, our words, even our economic choices. It feels kind of hopeless. How could anyone possibly live like that? And this brings us to the final and maybe the most crucial question of all. The source draws a really important line in the sand here. The idea of grace and forgiveness isn't supposed to be a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's not a cheap pass that says, hey, go ahead and mess up, you're forgiven anyway. No, true grace, in this view, is the power that actually enables you to even try to live up to this crazy high standard.
And in the end, the conclusion is this. We can't do this alone. It's impossible. The point isn't to be crushed by guilt. The point is to realize we need help. So true faith isn't just about what you believe in your head. It's about a life that is actively being changed with divine help to become someone who protects and honors the lives of others.
And that brings us to the end, with the same profound, personal question the source leaves us with. Given this incredible, demanding call, not just to avoid killing, but to actively bring life to others, why be a Christian? The answer, it seems, isn't in having it all figured out, but in the journey of trying to live out this radical, life-giving love day after day. Definitely something to think about.